I've had guys y'all know like come out here in April making more money than they ever made before, and they have a car, they got a girlfriend, they got their phone, they got all that going on, right? And they're managing that before they ever started working for me. And then they start working for me making more money, and in 6 months they broke and ain't got a girl, ain't got a phone, ain't got a car, ain't got nothing, and they made more money than they ever had before in their life. It's a mental makeup, man. So I've been hearing some stuff on the tube from various channels out there, and they're talking about, you know, the reason why guys can't keep help is because they ain't paying them enough. And I gotta come in on that and refute that because that is, I mean, that's the farthest thing from the truth. I mean, for the most part, because, and I'm a prime example of that. You guys know the problems. I paid guys $25 an hour, $20 an hour, $30 an hour, and they still quit. They still don't show up. They still do all the things that somebody I'd be paying $10 an hour does. I mean, it's, to me, that concept, you ain't paying them enough, is ludicrous, man. It's not true. I mean, it's simply not true. And, you know, for people to make these kind of statements that don't have employees or haven't never really had an employee or employees over time, they shouldn't make statements like that, number one, because it doesn't make them, put them in the best light. Not when you got guys out here that have been out here a long time and they're going through employees, and people can say, well, Ray, you ain't paying them enough. That's a lie. I mean, that's a bold-faced lie. I'm paying them and then some. And for the most part, the more money they make, the more problems they got. That's usually how it is. Because if you pay them too much money, then, well, their brain is not ready to handle that kind of money. They're not self-disciplined enough to make $1,000 a week. Well, $1,000 a week ain't no money, Ray. Well, go get a 9 to 5 and you'll see that it is. Because at the end of the day, when they're making that much money, they end up getting into things they would never even get into if they were making, you know, $500 a week. That's not why you can't keep them. That might be a contributing factor, being you can't offer them enough hours, or it's seasonal, or that kind of thing. They might quit for all that, for the unpredictability. I'll give you that, but they ain't quitting because of the money. They might say that, but they're not. It ain't like they're quitting me at $25 an hour and going up the road and getting $30 an hour. I mean, it's, I guarantee you they're not. That's just not true. Good character, good morals are either you got them or you don't. Self-discipline, either you have it or you don't. A lot of guys, they're not meaning any harm or nothing, but they come out here and work with me, and they're making more money in 5 or 6 hours than they ever made working 8 or 9 hours. And then they have more time off too, because they're not working as many hours, so they're getting off at 2:30 instead of 5:30. So there's 3 hours there that they can get into some crap, you know, because they got free time and they got more money than they ever had. And that usually ends up costing the business, where the business gets rid of them, or they quit because they can't show up no more because they're so hungover or whatever from spending all that good money they're making on better dope, better booze, better women, better clubs. They just spending it better on better stuff. They're still not paying their bills. They're still not doing what they're supposed to be doing with the money, banking it or whatever. And usually they get so far out there over a course of time while they're out here that it starts really showing about, usually after about the third or fourth check they get. After about the third or fourth week, all their stuff that they've been lacking on has gotten paid, right? And so now they ain't got to pay all that stuff they were behind on, and now they got that $800, $1,000 check, and they're looking around like, oh hell, what am I going to do with all this money? And then that usually causes problems. I would say the more you pay guys, the less likely they're coming to work, to be honest with you, a certain individual. Because at the end of the day, it's going to catch up with them. Their lifestyle off the field with their self-discipline is going to catch up with them. Now, everybody's not like that, we know. But I have found that guys, you know, a lot are, put it that way. So you got to take all that with a grain of salt. And it's, you know, it's hard to say, well, the reason you don't have employees was you're not paying them enough. And it coming from somebody that has never had employees. So that rationale doesn't even make sense to me. It's just showing that, you know, well, you're speculating, you know. And there's nothing wrong with speculating as long as it's based on semi-experience. That's my take on that, man. I don't even fall into that trap that I'm not paying them enough, because rarely do they leave here and go get a job making more money than they were making here. They usually get a job, because what ends up happening too is by the time they get to the end of, you know, where they're really screwing up in their personal life because they're making more money than ever, and usually it ends up, I've had guys, y'all know, like, come out here in April making more money than they ever made before, and they have a car, they got a girlfriend, they got their phone, they got all that going on, right? And they're managing that before they ever started working for me. And then they start working for me making more money, and in 6 months they broke and ain't got a girl, ain't got a phone, ain't got a car, ain't got nothing, and they made more money than they ever had before in their life. It's a mental makeup, man. It's a mental self-discipline thing. You would think that, well, they made more money than ever, they'd have a better car, a better girl, a better phone. I mean, these are just three basic things that I've seen with my own two eyes. After 6 months of making $800 or $900 a week when they never made that kind of money before. Well, really, that ain't a lot of money. That's good money down here where I'm at for the guys that come out here and work for me. It is. If they can get $800 a week, they're doing good with the hours that we work. So don't get it twisted and think it's always the greedy boss. Why would the boss want to keep more of the money? Because if the guy quits, then the boss can't even make that much money. That concept doesn't make sense. It just doesn't. You know, I want the guys to make good money. I want them to make great money. And if they're out here long enough, they eventually will. But they're not going to come in making great money, and rarely can they make it, you know, 90 days. It's just not a desirable job, you know. And then working for me might even be less desirable. But it ain't the pay. It's the expectations that I expect from the employee. That's what usually will make them not like me. But they love the pay, and then they start doing things their way for my pay. And then it all ends up being, and then they, you know, and then every payday they broke the next day. Come on, man. It ain't what you're paying them, it's who they are. That's what it is. Who's this?